part of a good ghost story is you never really know the specifics. It keeps people guessing, and it also keeps people interested. Still to this day, there's folks trying to figure out who Mary might have been. The story of Resurrection Mary just follows a pretty simple premise. An unknowing driver driving down Archer Avenue near Justice, Illinois, usually in the hours of the night, 11 p.m. till 3, 4 in the morning, will encounter a beautiful blonde woman in an all-white dress, either on the side of the road or crossing the street. They'll stop, ask if she's lost or if she needs anything, and depending on who's telling the story, she might disappear before she finishes crossing the road or by the time you stop, or she might get in the back of your car and ask for a ride to where she lives, and she directs the driver to Resurrection Cemetery. And once she asks the driver to stop, a look in the back seat, and it was as if she was never there. The significance of Resurrection Cemetery in the story, I think it's twofold. The common held belief is that she is probably buried there, or it might be because of the cemetery's close proximity to what was the O. Henry Ballroom, which is where she, again, has been reportedly seen. On the topic of the cemetery itself, there was a really interesting thing that occurred in 1976. It was an August night. A driver called the local PD to report that he had seen what appeared to be a young woman in a white dress behind the gates of the cemetery. And this was well after the visiting hours had passed, and so the cemetery was closed, and he was concerned that she might be stuck in there or something might have happened. Within a few minutes, police were dispatched, but no young woman could be found. However, upon closer investigation, the local police officer did discover 2 of the cemetery's wrought iron bars that sort of mark the perimeter of the cemetery were bent at a really strange angle, and so much so that some folks said that you could see handprints on there, and this sort of like started this frenzy of it was the ghost of Resurrection Mary trying to get out of the graveyard. And it got so bad because people sort of came in droves to either get a glimpse of Mary or see the wrought iron bars that the cemetery officials actually had them removed in 1977, sent to be repaired, and then reinstalled in 1980. So you can't see them anymore, but for that brief year-long period, it was sort of like a pilgrimage site for folks really interested in local hauntings. There are 2 figures in history that people have most closely associated with Mary. The first one was a young woman by the name of Mary Bregovy, who died in 1934 in the Loop after a pretty terrible car accident. And the reason people have linked Mary with the ghost story is because she was seen dancing at the O. Henry Ballroom, which is the typical haunt where most of the sightings have been for Mary. The crash happened downtown because after the O. Henry Ballroom closed, her entourage wanted to keep the party going, so they ventured into the city to find another place to hang out, but she met an unfortunate end. The second person that people have linked Mary to is Anna Dorcas, who people called Mary, who also died in nearby Summit, Illinois in a car accident. And she would have been about 12 or 13 at the time she died, but was also known for enjoying dancing and being a very lively person. We can't say for certain that either one of those is Mary, but those are the 2 historical figures most closely associated with the ghost that we know today. Sometimes we'll go years without anyone sharing anything, and all it takes is for one person to say that they've seen something. I think still in this day and age, it's a bit taboo to talk about having those types of experiences for one reason or another. I think the peak of the sightings were from the 1930s till about the 1980s was when she was most heavily reported. Here at the Chicago History Museum, we're tasked with sort of like remembering and interpreting the city's history, but so much of it was never written down, or so much of it was lost to time because no one thought to save these things. And often what remains is these sort of like oral accounts or these stories shared from the past. Both of the young women who are sort of most closely associated with the story, they were both Polish-American women, and to this day, that area of Justice Summit is still has a very heavy Polish-American population. It's another tool for us to track sort of the movement of people, how ideas are spreading, and also just cultural beliefs that people might have brought from their homeland in their immigration story here in the US. Even though we might never get to the bottom of it, historically speaking, they still offer a lot of value as a way into other larger topics in the collective history of the city. I think that Mary's story resonates with Chicagoans because, one, it has all the makings of a good ghost story. Again, it has sort of like that murky history. It's very local. It's also relatable, going out for night dancing. It does two things really well. One, it sort of serves as this keepsake of what things were like, you know, in the 1930s, the heyday of ballroom dancing in America. Very few remnants remain of that era in Chicago, so that story keeps that alive. And also in the 1930s, you know, the culture was completely different, and picking up a hitchhiker probably wasn't as crazy as it might be today. And then the second reason I think that Mary's story really has endured is it's a cautionary tale. You know, it's warning folks who are out there in the late hours of the night. You don't know what's lurking, especially, again, in places where vice might be readily accessible, like a dance hall or a club. It's just a cautionary tale. Sometimes it's best to keep driving.